Back here on the weekend with Anthony Oprin. Just got done talking with Lauren Sisler of WIAT, CBS 42 in Birmingham, Alabama. Of course, the BCS National Championship game coming up this Monday night between LSU and Alabama. And while we're talking Alabama, I guess it's appropriate to bring in a guy who's fished a little bit around Alabama for our weekly wildlife chat, the first of 2012. Welcome back in from the Department of Game and Inland Fisheries, Chris Dunnavant. And Chris, while we're on the topic, way back in the very first show, I kind of forced you into making a pick between LSU, Alabama, and the biggest game in the history of history, number one, and you decided to go with Alabama in the points. Fortunately, the tide didn't roll for you. You get a mulligan, though, here in the national championship game. LSU, Alabama, down in New Orleans. Who are you going with this time?
Well, I think, last time I went with the fishing theme, Roll Tide, that theme. But I think this time I'm going to go with LSU. I think they're going to be pretty tough to beat, in their home, and they're a tough team. So I'm going to just go with LSU this time. I think they're going to take it.
Have you ever squared off with a Cajun on his turf?
No, I don't think so. Don't think I want to. I think that's probably a situation you want to avoid.
Well, let's jump right back into the fishing and wildlife theme here. Before our very last show before the holidays, we had Chris Dunnavant's gift-giving guide to the angler in your family. We talked about things to possibly end up in your stocking or under the tree, or better yet, in your driveway. Did you get any of the things that you brought up, or maybe even something better?
Yeah, I didn't get anything that I brought up. I didn't have the big bow in the driveway, but I did get something that I really wanted that was on my list. I practiced what I preached. I gave a list out, and I got a real nice pair of fishing sunglasses, Costa Del Mar sunglasses, and really, it's kind of thing that, they're premium sunglasses, quality optics, and you may not splurge for yourself, and so it's a nice thing to ask for Christmas, and I got them, and I'm already really enjoying them, and so really looking forward to the year of enjoying those nice sunglasses. They're polarized, so I really encourage anglers to get polarized glasses and get the best pair that you can afford, because it does make a difference, the quality of lens. But what it does, not completely, but it really minimizes the glare on the water. And what that does, it allows you to see in the water. It's not magic. It just cuts that glare down, and you can see down into the water. And it's amazing. Not only can you see fish swimming around, but probably what you do use it for more is you can see stumps and cover and grass edges and changes in bottom composition you can pick up, and really are just more information to help you and cue you in to make good decisions as an angler and to be more successful.
Again, joined by Chris Dunnavant for the Virginia Department of Game and Inland Fisheries, weekly wildlife conversation here on the weekend with Anthony Oprin. Chris, did you get to do any fishing over the holidays?
I did a little bit. A lot of family time. The weather was great. Some of those nice days I wasn't able to fish because of family time, but got to go out a little bit. Went to a good friend of mine. We went fishing, and we went to the hot side of Lake Anna. Now, Lake Anna has a nuclear power plant, and what they do is they discharge water into what we call the hot side. It's separated by 3 dikes, and it goes through these pools, and by the time it enters into the lake, it's cooled down significantly where it's not going to make a major impact on the main lake. And what's nice about the hot side, it's private. You have to know somebody to get in there. But the nice thing about it is, you can be in the middle of the wintertime. Water temperatures can be in the 50s, upper 50s, when everything else is in the upper 30s or low 40s. And you can be catching fish on topwater, and you're bundled up in, all your winter gear and gloves and stocking cap, and you're catching fish on topwater bait. So it can be a really fun time. But we had a pretty nice day. It was a good time. We had a good fishing trip.
And you say that you can do this while you're bundled up. Were you bundled up on that day?
It was chilly. It was supposed to be. The weather forecaster said it wasn't supposed to be so bad, but it ended up being really windy, which made it pretty cold. So the conditions weren't, the weatherman was not on target, as tends to often be the case. But, it was kind of windy out there.
Well, I got to be honest with you, too, because when the wind's coming off the water like that, it's especially cold. I don't know if I would have been able to stick it out. I may have had to go run for cover.
Well, it's funny you mention that because it is true. That wind's blowing, it's cold, and it's tough. It's hard on you. Because we were using my boat. I'm up on the front on the trolling motor, and you're battling the wind and the waves, trying to maintain boat position. And it really is. You so want to go to that protected side of the lake and those protected coves. And there were times where there were certain places where it was hard to fish, the kind of fishing we were wanting to do. But ultimately, we really needed to be out in that wind. And I will, so we would go to a certain area and it was kind of calm. But as soon as we got out into a windy area, that's where we caught fish. And so you really, the wind is your friend, is a saying in fishing. And you really need to fish those windy areas because what's happening is that wind is creating a current, not only into the bank, but then as it hits the bank, there's a current that kind of rolls back the other direction, and it's creating kind of a churning effect. Well, that's mixing up the whole food chain, and so it kind of ignites the food chain. So then obviously we're going to be after bass, so they're going to follow through and be looking for the smaller fish that are motivated in this area, and that's where we caught our fish, in those windy areas. And so it's one of those things that it's really best to endure it as best you can, endure those windy conditions and fish in the wind. And I think our listeners will find better success. Might feel better, more comfortable in that calm cove, but you're going to catch more fish at the end of the day by fishing in the wind.
You brought up, obviously it's difficult to control the boat in windy conditions, but what about trying to cast into the wind? I imagine that'd be pretty tough too.
Yeah, it can. If you've got the wind at your back, you're golden. I mean, casting is effortless. But there's always those times the wind shifts or the bank shifts and you're casting. So it's the time to, if it's really windy, I pull out a spinning rod and cast my baits that I might normally use with a bait caster with a spinning outfit. I'm not going to have the backlash issues. If I am going to use a bait caster, I'm going to maybe crank up on my magnetic cast control a little bit so there's more tension on the spool so I'm less prone to backlashing. What we did was interesting. I think it's an interesting point to bring out is most people would think, okay, they're hearing me say fish windy banks, so they're thinking like, okay, I'm going to fish fast-moving baits. I'm going to fish spinner baits and crank baits and things like that. And most of the time that's probably true because, things are active, moving, this current. But this day, so it's not always true, this day we actually had to fish bottom baits. They were not coming up. We would reel crankbaits and baits that swim, and we wouldn't get bit or maybe one bite. But as soon as we went down and fished bottom baits on these windy banks and even fishing out to 12, 14 feet of water, that's where we caught our fish. And we were using a Carolina rig. Carolina rig has like a 3/4, 1 ounce sinker, and then a leader with your bait attached to the end of the leader. So it's real heavy. You can cast it in the wind, no problem. And the other thing is keeping bottom contact on a windy conditions. You can hardly feel the bottom. So fishing that Carolina rig with a heavy weight, or I also would throw a football jig with a 3/4 ounce weight, and I was able to stay on the bottom even in the tough windy conditions and feel my bait. So it's not always the fast moving baits, but you just have to adapt and adjust as an angler. Like, here are the conditions. If you try to fight the conditions and just kind of be persistent, like this is the way it's got to be, but as an angler, adapt. So we just used bottom. Hey, they're not biting fast moving baits, but they're biting on the bottom. So we need to fish heavier bottom baits that we can maintain control and feel of our lure in these windy banks. And it really paid off for us. We had a really decent day under tough conditions. And
you said beforehand when you were just fishing in the coves in the calmer conditions, really not much, but it really turned the day around, deciding to take the risk and go out a little bit more into the wind.
You said it right. I mean, there was one time we were in a cove. It was windy cove, and we wanted to fish deeper, and we just really couldn't. The condition, the wind was so bad, or white caps. So we actually said, let's just go try to fish something that's not so windy. And in the calm stuff, we just really didn't do anything. But when we got some of those moderately windy coves, and where the wind was blowing into the bank, it just, if it wasn't for that, we would have gone home with just a few fish as opposed to 20 fish. So it makes a big difference.
You're joined by Chris Dunnavant from the Virginia Department of Game and Inland Fisheries, a weekly wildlife conversation here on the weekend with Anthony Opperman. Very first of 2012, and certainly a lot to look forward to here in the month of January, Chris. Again, we continue to have some mild weather conditions, knock on wood, including the forecast for this weekend, so that's encouraging. But even if the weather will turn in the next couple weeks, definitely some stuff to look forward to, and certainly some stuff to circle on the calendar. Probably nothing bigger than the Bass and Saltwater Fishing Expo that's coming up later this month. Absolutely.
You know, that is something that all anglers look forward to. It's a weekend once a year where you have marine dealers and boat dealerships, and you have tackle dealers and other vendors there showing the latest things, the newest products for 2012, and you get a chance to also, last year there were 13,000 people that came for the weekend. And they're all interested anglers, so you get a chance to see friends and see other anglers and have good conversations, learn some things. But one of the other things, it's not just about selling boats and buying tackle and seeing the latest stuff, although that is all really important. But there's also professional anglers there giving seminars. So when you're buying your ticket, you can really make the most out of it and go and see these pros, go to their seminar, learn some things. But not just that, but those pros are hanging around, and you'll have a chance to talk to them if you want. Just have to approach them. They're usually hanging out near where they're doing the seminar, or they're in their sponsor's booth or their boat sponsor. They'll be hanging around there. So go seek those pros out and talk to them. You know, you can go and get your autograph, but ask them a fishing question. You'd be really surprised. They'll take up the time to talk to you and answer your questions. So it's not many sports do you get a chance to actually go up to the pro that you see on TV and see his name on the fishing packages and actually get up and have a conversation with him, and he's just a real person. So it's a real neat opportunity for that weekend.
And when is this taking place again?
It's the weekend of January 20th through 22nd, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It's at the Meadow Event Park in Doswell, where the State Fair is held now, up in Caroline County. You go get off at the Kings Dominion exit. That's a good way for everybody to know where it is. And Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and just going to be a great time. And, everybody should try to get a chance to come out. And one of the neat things, too, is when you buy a ticket, it's for the whole weekend. So you don't have to pay a daily admission. You buy a ticket, you go Friday, and the pro that you want to see is there on Saturday. You can come back, no charge. So it's a real value for your money. It's a good investment.
And certainly all of our friends from the Virginia Department of Game and Inland Fisheries will be out there as well. I'm hoping to make an appearance that Saturday after the show. And we're going to have a bigger preview of the Bass and Saltwater Fishing Expo for our show on the 21st. We'll really kind of delve into more of what to look out for and some of the highlights. And we're also hoping to secure a package maybe to give away and allow one lucky fan to have the opportunity, or hopefully multiple fans to have the opportunity to be able to go attend this event for free, courtesy of the Virginia Department of Game and Inland Fisheries and the folks that put on the expo. So be on the lookout for that hopefully next weekend. And Chris, as the segment often has a way of doing, wrapping up oh so quickly, certainly thank you for taking the time. Great to flip the calendar to 2012, and looking forward to many more fishing stories to come this year.
Absolutely, and thank you, Anthony, for having me back, and looking forward to 2012 and all that it holds for us, and fishing and our time together here, and it'll be a good year.
Hey, Chris Dunnavant for the Virginia Department of Game and Inland Fisheries, weekly wildlife conversation. When we come back, got my game plan for the weekend. A lot of football coming up, including the wild card weekend. Tell you more about that when we return here on the weekend with Anthony Opperman.
The show is almost over, but the weekend is just getting started. More of The Weekend with Anthony Opperman is next on Sports Radio 910.